Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. My doorknob turned and Mark slid into my room barefoot. I lurched upright and grabbed my blanket like it mattered. He froze near my bed and kept one hand behind him. I knew right then this was not a harmless check-in. I'm Evan, 26, and I still hate how fast I panicked. Mark is my brother-in-law, and his face looked wired. He lifted my phone like a trophy and shook it once. My stomach dropped because I did not remember unlocking it. "You left this out," he muttered, tapping the screen with a thumb. He did not sound helpful, he sounded proud of himself. I reached for it and he leaned back, guarding it. That tiny move told me he came here to take something. I swallowed and tried to keep my voice normal. "Why are you in here?" I asked, then hated how weak it sounded. Mark angled the phone away and watched my hands. Like he expected me to snatch it and prove his point. He flicked to my messages and started scrolling fast. His eyes darted line to line like he was hunting keywords. Not gonna lie, I felt dirty just watching him read. I sat there trapped by my own screen and his grin. "You think I don't notice?" he whispered, almost like a dare. He pointed at one dumb joke I sent a friend weeks ago. I tried to explain and the words tangled in my mouth. He nodded like my scramble was a confession. I forced my feet onto the floor and stood up slow. I held my palms out, showing I was not rushing him. "Give it back," I said, then tried to laugh it off. The laugh came out sharp and he smiled wider. He took one step deeper into the room and shut the door. That sound hit me harder than it should have. You know that moment when your brain stops making excuses? Mine did, and it started counting exits. Mark's free hand moved to his pocket like he had more. He glanced at my closet, then back at my face. It felt rehearsed, like he practiced this scene alone. I realized he did not come to talk, he came to search. I stepped sideways toward the door and he mirrored me. He kept the phone low, ready to yank it away again. My throat went tight and I heard myself bargain. "What are you trying to prove right now?" He leaned in close enough that I could not ignore him. His voice dropped and turned weirdly gentle. "I know you're into me," he said, eyes locked on mine. Then he looked past me at my bed like he expected evidence. He jerked the phone up and away from me like bait. I took one step forward and he matched it instantly. My pulse jumped and my brain screamed to stay calm. I stopped moving because I saw where this was going. "Don't play dumb," Mark snapped, chin tilted like a judge. He dragged his thumb down the screen and paused on a thread. I watched my own words sit there, stripped of tone. "Have you ever seen a joke turn into a weapon?" He tapped one line and stared at my face for a reaction. It was a stupid reply to a meme from my friend. Mark's mouth twitched like he caught me lying. He wanted me to flinch so he could call it proof. "I don't want you," I said, voice rough and too loud. Mark raised his eyebrows and leaned closer, listening for cracks. He held the phone between us, screen angled toward his chest. That move felt less like fear and more like control. He scrolled again, faster now, like he was on a timer. Every few seconds he glanced up to measure me. I kept my hands visible, then hated how compliant I looked. I felt like I was bargaining with someone holding a knife. "You keep staring at me," he said, then pointed at nothing. He made a circle in the air, like the room was evidence. I started to argue, then stopped because it sounded pathetic. He watched me choke on my own defense. I tried a different angle and forced a calm tone. "Walk out," I told him, nodding toward the door. Mark didn't move, he just swiped into my photos. My throat tightened because I did not choose that moment. He zoomed in on a group picture from a family hangout. His finger hovered over my face, then over his. He made a quiet sound like a whin, and I felt sick. He was narrating my life like a fantasy in real time. I reached out slowly and he slapped my wrist away. Not hard enough to bruise, just hard enough to warn. I pulled back and held my wrist to my chest. My skin stung and the message landed anyway. "Touch me again and I yell," he said, eyes steady. He lifted his phone side up, like he was ready to call. I froze because I knew how that would play. In that split second, I saw my sister's face. I swallowed and tried to keep my voice even. Put it down and we talk like adults, I said. Mark laughed once through his nose, then tapped my settings. That was the part that still makes my stomach churn. He opened the account screen and scrolled through security stuff. I leaned in, trying to read over his shoulder. He shifted, blocking me with his body like a wall. Why would he be in my security menu at all? Unlock it, he ordered, holding the phone out an inch. I shook my head. Then felt my courage drain fast. Mark's stare didn't blink, and he didn't look excited anymore. He looked like he was collecting what he came for. I tried to snatch the phone anyway, dumb move, I know. He pivoted and my fingers caught air. Then he shoved me back with his forearm, not enough to knock me down. I hit the bed edge and saw stars for a second. Okay, I breathed, palms up again, trying to reset. Mark nodded like he trained me, and that thought made me furious. He held the phone close to my face, waiting for a scan. I turned my head away and he clicked his tongue. He pressed the screen again and again, forcing the prompt back. Each buzz sounded louder than it should have. Finally, I snapped stop, and my voice cracked on the last word. His smile came back, small, satisfied, mean. Then tell me the truth, he said, stepping closer. He pointed the phone at my chest like it was a badge. I stared at the lock screen and felt cornered in my own room. And then I heard the tiny sound of something being sent. I snapped my account page open and stabbed at recent activity. My thumb kept missing the button because it would not stop shaking. A fresh login sat there with the exact time from last night. It felt like someone left muddy prints in my head. I stared at the entry until my eyes watered. You know that sick pause when reality refuses to click. I checked the time twice, like the clock might apologize. It matched the moment I heard that tiny send sound. I hit log out of other sessions and watched it spin. For 1 second I felt relief, then it reloaded. The same login still sat there, calm as ever. That was when fear turned into pure anger. I tried to change my password and got an error. Wrong current password, like I forgot my own hands. I typed it again, slower, and the denial popped up. My stomach dropped because that meant he already moved first. I jumped to my email and searched for security alerts. One message showed a new sign-in from an unknown client. Another showed a password change request sent minutes later. He did not just peek, he tried to take the wheel. I hit the recovery steps like my life depended on it. Code new password, confirm, and lock it down hard. I turned on extra verification even though it felt dramatic. I kept thinking about his steady eyes in the dark. Then I noticed a new rule under my inbox settings. Forwarding enabled with an address I did not recognize. My skin went cold and my brain finally caught up. He planned to keep watching after he walked out. I deleted the rule and checked trash like it might fight back. Another rule sat beneath it, hiding messages with my sister's name. My hands clenched so tight my knuckles hurt. That was not jealousy anymore, that was strategy. I pulled up my sent folder and scrolled fast. There was a message I never wrote, sent to his number. It was a screenshot of my chat thread list. My chest tightened because it was a setup. I copied the timestamp and stared at it like a bruise. Right after he pushed the handset toward my face. So that send was him sending himself ammo. He wanted receipts and he wanted them clean. I called him before I could talk myself out of it. It rang twice, then he picked up, already irritated. Why are you blowing up my phone? His voice snapped. He sounded ready, like he expected this call. Remove whatever you added to my account, I said. There was a short pause, then a small laugh. What account? He asked, too quick and too smooth. He tried to play innocent while holding the map. I told him about the forwarding and the hidden thread rule. Silence hit the line like a dropped plate. Then he muttered, "You should stop being weird about me." That deflection landed because he had no other move. I said one last thing and my voice surprised me. If you touch my stuff again, I tell my sister tonight. His breathing changed, slower and meaner through the speaker. And I'll tell her you begged for me, he warned like a promise. I slapped my car keys onto the counter and called my sister. My voice came out thin, and I hated that instantly. I told her I needed to talk tonight, no excuses. She paused, then asked what I did this time. I showed up and Mark opened the door like a host. He blocked the frame with his shoulder, smiling too wide. His eyes tracked my hands like he expected a weapon. I walked past him anyway because backing up felt worse. My sister hugged me fast, then pulled back to study me. She asked if I was sick or if I was drunk. I shook my head and I could feel my jaw locking. Mark hovered behind her, listening like a lawyer. We sat down and he started making small talk on purpose. He asked about my week, then laughed at nothing. My sister kept glancing between us, waiting for the punchline. I kept counting seconds until I could break the surface. I cleared my throat and set my phone on the table. Mark's gaze snapped to it like a reflex. I noticed that and my patience thinned fast. I said his name once and the room shifted. What? Mark replied, chewing slow like he had all night. I told my sister. He went into my room late. Mark lifted his glass and took a calm sip. My sister's eyebrows rose and she didn't blink. I pushed my phone toward her and opened the activity page. My fingers shook, but I kept it steady on the timestamp. I said there was a login during that mess, right after. Mark's knee bumped mine under the table. My sister leaned in and squinted at the entry. Mark chuckled and waved his hand like it was nothing. He said I was paranoid and loved drama. I watched her face tighten and I kept going. I told her about the forwarding rule and the hidden filter. I kept my words tight because I knew how it sounded. Mark's smile stayed fixed, but his eyes went sharp. My sister looked up at him and he stared back hard. Why were you in his account? She asked, voice flat. Mark spread his hands like he was the injured one. He said he was protecting her from me. The way he said my name made my skin crawl. He turned to me and leaned forward, elbows on the table. You're obsessed, he said, like he was tired of pretending. My sister flinched at the word, then looked at me again. I could see her trying to measure my reaction. I laughed once and it sounded ugly in my ears. I told him. He broke into my space and grabbed my device. Mark shook his head slow, like I was rewriting history. Then he slid his own phone onto the table. He tapped it and pushed it toward my sister. A screenshot filled the display, my chat list cropped tight. My sister's eyes widened a little, then narrowed. Mark watched me, waiting for me to crack. He pointed at a thread name and made a small scoff. He said it was obvious what I was doing. I wanted to scream, but that would feed him. So I asked my sister to check the sent time. She turned the phone and read the timestamp out loud. It landed right where I knew it would, right after that standoff. Mark blinked once, then recovered with a shrug. He acted like timing was a coincidence, like clocks lie. I leaned in and tapped my own activity log again. I showed her the exact minute the security alert hit. My sister's lips pressed together and her hands went still. Mark's foot slid closer and I felt the pressure. Under the table, his fingers clamped my wrist hard. Not enough to leave marks, just enough to warn me. I kept my face neutral because I refused to give him a show. My sister noticed my pause and her gaze dropped. She stared at his hand on me like it was a stain. Mark didn't let go, he tightened like he dared her. I held her eyes and didn't move a muscle. That silence stretched until my ears started ringing. Let him go, she said, quiet but firm. Mark laughed softly and released me like it was playful. He brushed his palm on his jeans like I was dirty. My sister's face hardened, and I felt a weird relief. Mark leaned back and started talking faster. He said I wanted attention and he had proof. He said I stared at him and I wanted him. Hearing it out loud made my stomach twist hard. I cut in and asked one question, simple and sharp. Why did you change my password? I said, watching his eyes. Mark's gaze flicked to my sister, then away. He answered with a joke and it landed dead. My sister pushed her plate away and folded her arms. She told him to stop dodging and answer clean. Mark's jaw worked and his nostrils flared once. He looked at me like he wanted to bite. He pointed at me and smirked like he found a new angle. He told my sister I was in love with him. Then he added that I couldn't handle rejection. I almost choked because the audacity was unreal. I told her he threatened to flip the story on me. I said he promised to claim I begged for him. Mark snapped his head toward me, eyes blazing. My sister's face went pale and her hands shook once. Mark reached across the table and grabbed her hand. He squeezed like he could press her back into place. He told her I was trying to split them up, classic move. My sister yanked her hand free and his smile slipped. You went into his room, she said, voice rising now. You touched his account, she added, louder on the second hit. Mark tried to interrupt and she held up one finger. That gesture stopped him cold and I saw fear flash. He tried another tactic and softened his tone fast. He told her he was scared for her, that he panicked. He reached toward her again and she leaned away. Watching her flinch did something ugly inside me. I slid my phone across the table and opened the email alerts. I let her scroll without me narrating every detail. Mark sat rigid, tapping his knee like a metronome. My sister's breathing turned shallow and she kept scrolling. She stopped on the forwarding address and stared at it. Then she looked up at him like she did not recognize hi. Mark's lips parted, then closed, then parted again. He had no script for that look and it showed. He tried to stand, like leaving would reset the scene. My sister planted her palm on the table and stayed seated. She told him to sit down now. Mark hovered halfway up, then sat like a kid caught stealing. She turned to me and asked one thing carefully. Are you safe? She said, eyes locked on mine. I nodded, but it felt like a lie in my mouth. Because I knew he was not done, and he knew it too. Mark's voice dropped into that private threat tone again. He said we were humiliating him, and we would regret it. My sister stared at him, and her face went blank. That blank look scared me more than yelling ever could. She stood up and pointed toward the hallway. She told him to sleep somewhere else tonight, no debate. Mark's head snapped toward her, then toward me. And his eyes told me exactly what came next. My key hit the lock and stopped dead. Someone had jammed it. I tried again, harder, and the metal scraped like teeth. I backed off and checked the hallway, heart thumping stupidly loud. A soft tap came from my door like a dare. I swung it open and found a note stuck low. No signature, just 4 words in blocky ink. Stop lying about me. I crumpled it, then my buzzer rang again, twice. I didn't answer the intercom, I just listened. Breathing, then a faint chuckle, then quiet. I stood there with my hand on the knob, frozen mid-choice. When the silence broke, it was my phone vibrating nonstop. The screen filled with missed calls from a number I knew. Then a text came through, short and smug. Open up, we need to talk. I blocked it and my stomach tightened anyway. You know that thing where you block someone but feel watched? That was me, staring at my own door like it could blink. I slid a chair under the knob, then hated myself for it. Then I heard the scrape again, right at the frame. I grabbed my phone and called my sister, hands shaking hard. She picked up fast, breathy, like she was already crying. He's gone, she said, then swallowed on the word. Behind her I heard a male laugh, thin and sharp. She started talking, then cut herself off mid-sentence. I heard a door slam on her end, then a muffled argument. My gut screamed for me to drive over there. Then the line went dead, like someone yanked the cord. I paced and forced myself to think in steps. Locksmith, new locks, new codes, and no more soft choices. I texted my sister, short and clear, are you safe right now? 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then nothing. The next morning, I met the locksmith at my door. He frowned at the jammed lock and muttered under his breath. I watched him work, jaw clenched, trying not to spiral. When the new lock clicked, I still felt exposed. I changed every password again, then changed them once more. I logged out of everything, even stuff I barely used. It felt paranoid, but I couldn't risk another silent entry. Then my boss called my name from across the office. He held his phone out, screen facing me. A message thread sat there and my stomach flipped over. It was me texting him last night, drunk and sloppy. I stared at it because I never sent any of that. I asked to see the number and my boss hesitated. It matched mine clean as a stamp. My voice came out tight, someone spoofed me. My boss blinked like he didn't want to believe that. I pulled up my call logs and showed him the gaps. I showed him the timestamps that did not match my reality. He watched my hands, then my face, weighing the lie. Then he asked the question I dreaded, who would do this? I told him the truth in 3 sentences. My brother-in-law broke in, then tried to take my accounts. Now he's trying to bury me with it. My boss exhaled slow and his eyes went cautious. He told me to go home and handle it. Not kindly, more like a warning with a smile. I nodded and walked out, throat burning the whole way. Outside, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. A photo popped up before any text. It was my building, shot from across the street. The next message came after, nice new locks. My legs went weak and I looked around fast. I didn't see him, but I felt him anyway. I ducked into a store and called my sister again. This time she answered, voice flat like she ran out of tears. He's telling everyone you hit on him, she whispered. I asked where he was and she paused too long. Then she admitted he was at her place, refusing to leave. She sounded ashamed for saying it, which made me furious. I told her to call the cops and she went quiet. She didn't call, at least not then. Instead, she sent me a screenshot of a group chat. Mark had posted first, acting wounded, acting noble. He wrote that I was obsessed and he feared for her. I stared at that message until my vision blurred. He picked the perfect tone, like a guy begging for sympathy. Then he added one line that made my skin crawl. He said he found evidence in my room. I called him and he answered on the first ring. You're spiraling, he said, voice cheerful like he won. I asked what evidence and he laughed into the silence. Then he said my name in that soft threat way again. You're done, he said, and I heard a smile in it. I asked why he was doing this and my voice cracked. He breathed out slow like he enjoyed the crack. Because you won't admit it, he replied, calm as ice. I hung up and recorded the next call without thinking. I called again and kept my words simple and clear. I asked if he entered my room and if he changed my stuff. He answered with a pause that sounded like a trap closing. He didn't deny it this time, he reframed it. I protected my wife, he said, like that excused everything. I asked if he threatened me and he scoffed once. You threaten yourself, he snapped, and my hands clenched hard. That night my sister finally met me in public. She slid into the booth and didn't look at me at first. Her hands shook as she pushed her phone across. On the screen was a note app titled, What He Told Me. I read the bullets and my stomach dropped again. He told her I tried to kiss him at a family dinner. He told her I begged him to keep it secret. He told her he forgave me, and she believed it until now. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I feel so stupid, she whispered, then flinched at her own words. I wanted to comfort her, but my anger kept biting. I asked what changed and she swallowed hard. He slipped, she said, voice low. He described your room, she added, and her eyes sharpened. He mentioned a drawer you don't even have, she finished. That tiny mistake cracked his whole story open. I told her about the forwarding rules and the spoof texts. I kept it blunt because soft talk failed us already. She nodded like each detail hit her in the ribs. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. He took my phone too, she whispered. Last week, she added, staring at the table. He said he was checking my battery, she finished, voice breaking. I felt my body go still, like something snapped inside. I walked her to her car and watched every shadow. She asked if she could stay with me and I said yes. Then she asked if I hated her and I didn't answer fast enough. That pause hurt her face and it hurt mine too. We got to my place and my new lock clicked shut. She looked at it like it was a promise, then exhaled. I checked every window twice, then hated how normal that felt. Then my inbox pinged and her head snapped up. An email sat there with no subject line. One sentence, no greeting, no name. I miss you. My sister stared at the screen and I couldn't tell who it was for.